Hello, everyone. This is the Bird Road Traffic Calming Meeting. This is meeting number 1 out of 2. On behalf of the City of Ann Arbor, I'd just like to thank you all for joining us. This is an opportunity for us to engage with community members. These traffic calming projects specifically rely on resident feedback, so really the any participation is much appreciated and encouraged. Um, Go over, if you didn't get a chance to read through the slide, we do have a project website. If you haven't had a chance to visit that previously, there is a website on Ann Arbor's, there is a page on Ann Arbor's website specifically for the Bird Road Traffic Calming Project. So moving along, we'll do some introductions. My name is Christy Thullen. I'm going to be presenting tonight. Also presenting with me, I'm joined by Lori Pollock. We both work at Wade Trim. The traffic calming team for Bird Road is a partnership between the City of Ann Arbor and Wade Trim. We're an engineering firm based here in Southeast Michigan. We've been contracted by the city to just assist with their traffic calming projects. This includes design work, project management, hosting public meetings, sending out communications to everyone. So from Wade Trim, the team members include Chris Wall, Lori Pollock, and myself. So if you see our names, faces, the Wade Trim logo throughout the project, just know um, we are working on behalf of the City of Ann Arbor. And then naturally with this partnership, we're working closely with the Ann Arbor City staff. So there's a handful of city staff members and departments that we coordinate with, but throughout these projects specifically, we've been working with Andrea, Chris, and Cyrus. This is our meeting agenda for tonight. Most of tonight's time is going to be dedicated to the meeting number 1 portion under that third section, where we will review devices, present our starter idea, and collect feedback from everyone. So the first item on our agenda is a quick technology overview. If you're joining from a computer or using the Zoom app, there are going to be 2 ways for you to ask questions and provide feedback. You'll be able to virtually raise and lower your hand using the button at the bottom of your screen. This is going to notify us that you'd like to speak. When recognized, we'll allow you to unmute, so you'll be able to unmute and speak. If you'd rather type a question or comment, you can press the Q&A button that's also at the bottom of your screen. Chat box will appear. You can type in the text box. You can press send to submit your message. Just know that if you would like to send any feedback anonymously, there's a box that you'll have to check. And then for any attendees dialing in by phone, which I do see at least one tonight, you can raise your hand or you can request to speak by dialing *9. So if you're on a phone, you'll dial *9 to request to speak. You'll be recognized by the last 3 digits of your phone number, and then we'll unmute you. So you won't be able to use the Q&A function, but you'll be able to raise your hand and speak, and we can call on you. I did just get a question coming in to show who is in the meeting. I can't show that, but on the summary at the after the meeting, when we post the discussion with the polling information, there will be a sign-in list that will show the names of people who have signed into the meeting. But right now I show that I have 8 people who are attending who are not part of the project team. There will be multiple points throughout the presentation where community feedback is requested through the polling feature. So if you're on a computer using the app and a poll is launched, it's just going to automatically pop up for you. After you answer the polling question, just press submit. When the poll closes, results will automatically pop up. You can press close to stop viewing the results. And then additionally, I'll close the results for everyone when we're ready to move on. And then again, for anyone dialing in by phone, I'll read the question out loud. I'll read available responses. And then to participate, you would just dial *9 like you would to request to speak. You'll be recognized by the last 3 digits of your phone number. I'll unmute you. You'll be able to answer the polling question, and then you'll be placed back on mute. Just a side note with that, if you're dialing in and participating in polling, it's not entirely anonymous. You would be identified by the last 3 digits of your number, but just putting that out there. But otherwise, polling is anonymous. So just to test that, I'll launch our first poll. It's just asking if you live in the project area. Our project area for this, for Bird Road is between Newport Road and Huron River Drive. And I did get everyone's answers. And then small correction, I have 7 people who are joining us right now who are not part of the project team. So I'm sharing the results. You should see those. Everyone who's attending tonight is a resident of the project area, so that's great. We'll stop sharing. We'll move on. And then the last bit of business to get through that's pretty standard is just Zoom norms. I think we're all pretty familiar with virtual meetings, but just during the presentation and especially during any feedback from your fellow community members, just please keep these things in mind. We want to start on time so we can end on time. I've got an hour and a half allotted for this meeting. So I want to make sure that everyone has information that they need and can share any feedback. So I appreciate everyone getting here early, getting here on time, raising your hand to be recognized to talk. We're only going to have one person speaking at a time, so please use those raise hand functions that we talked about or use the Q&A. If you are speaking, please move to a quiet area and try to silence any background noise when speaking. Just make sure you're speaking up loud and clear so we can all hear you. And as I said, there will only be one speaker at a time, but we will be providing everyone a chance to speak before we have repeat speakers. Please be respectful of other ideas and perspectives. We want to avoid finger pointing. We want to stick with, or we want to differentiate between fact and opinion. And lastly, any inappropriate written and/or verbal comment or language, including personal attacks, accusations, that'll just result in the attendee being removed from the meeting. No, um, no, nothing else, just being removed from the meeting. So if I've missed anything else, if you think there's anything else we should add with meeting etiquette, I'll pause here for a moment. You can use the Q&A, you can raise your hand. I'm not seeing anything, so we'll move forward onto the traffic calming process. This is just a definition from a publication, a professional publication about traffic calming. Basically, the focus in traffic calming is to make changes that will not only make roads safer for drivers, but safer for pedestrians, wheelchair users, bicyclists, scooters, etc., for everyone using the road. So traffic calming isn't by any means a new concept. There are tons of examples all across the US, all across the world. Tons of examples in Ann Arbor. We'll show a lot of them in the slides later on. But specifically with traffic calming in Ann Arbor, the traffic calming program in Ann Arbor is designed to provide residents with a formal process for engaging with the city in a partnership to perform a technical analysis of traffic concerns on local streets and to also explore potential solutions using the fundamentals of traffic calming. It's a 5-step program. Wade Trim is currently assisting with step 2 through a portion of step 5. I will briefly describe each step, but there's a guidebook available online that has all of the details if you have anything that you want to review after the meeting. But step 1 started with one of your neighbors acting as a petitioner who submitted a request to the traffic calming program for Bird Road between Newport Road and Huron River Drive. After defining that project area, that petitioner gathered signatures from other residents who also live within the limits. The requirement for the traffic calming program to accept the request is that at least 50% of the defined project area must support the project, and a preliminary technical study must result in at least 10 points. So Bird Road, petitioner was able to collect signatures from 53% of addresses, and the preliminary study resulted in 32 points. There's a more complete breakdown of the points available on the project website if you want to look at it. I do want to pause here just to make sure that everyone is aware of the project area limitations. So the petition defined Bird Road between Newport Road and Huron River to be considered for traffic calming, but the program guide requires that the existing road to be paved before any devices to be placed there. So we are unable to propose any changes on the portion of Bird Road that is dirt. The approximate area is shown on the map here, so that the red X, that's where the road is unpaved currently. So this segment of Bird Road won't be part of our traffic calming discussion. There have already been a number of safety concerns in this area, even prior to traffic calming, especially at the hill that's right before the parking area for the nature preserve. And then even since we've started this process, since Wade Trim has taken over this portion, we've been getting comments about safety in this area. So I'm collecting all of the comments and handing them back to the city, but for now, I will be keeping our focus on what the traffic calming project can address. And then at the end of the meeting, we'll discuss any additional resources that the city has. So step 2, that's where we came in. Wade Trim sent out mailers with an initial questionnaire to all of the project area residents to gather feedback, specific concerns you might have, and then what experiences you might have previously had with traffic calming. The requirement for us to continue on to step 3 was that at least 50% of those who participate in the questionnaire must support the project moving forward. So of the questionnaire responses we received, 82% were in favor. And there's a detailed summary of the initial questionnaire on the project website. In general, results of the initial questionnaire indicated that speeding and poor sight distances were common concerns. The starred locations show where frequent crossings are observed. And then, like I said, or if you're just joining us, the map is showing only the paved portion of Bird Road. So the unpaved segment between the hill by the nature area and Huron River Drive, those aren't currently eligible for improvements through the traffic calming program, but like I said, we'll save that discussion for the end of the meeting if there's any questions. So again, I'll pause here. If there's any other concerns or if there's context that I missed, please either you can raise your hand or use the Q&A function. And then I did get a question, is the lack of sidewalk considered? So it'll be on one of the later slides as well, but the program guide, traffic calming program does not install new sidewalks. They won't install new sidewalk ramp connections either. The city does have a separate program for sidewalks, but the traffic calming would not be able to put sidewalks in. I know that, yeah, this entire stretch doesn't have any pedestrian facilities, which was another big concern with another frequent comment in the questionnaire. Yes, that's lack of pedestrian facilities. Okay, don't see anything else. So step 3 is where we are today. It's where most of our focus will be for the rest of the meeting. Before I present the starter idea, we'll go through an overview of the device toolbox that is described in the guidebook. Before we do that, I'll launch another poll just to check and see if people are familiar with the guidebook, if they didn't get a chance to take a look at it. I know when we mailed the questionnaire out, you received a copy of the guidebook, but it was a very small copy. So not always the easiest to read. And there was a QR code to get you to the website to read a full version of it, but I know that's not always, there's not always time for that. So I've got all the answers in. So it seems like everyone's already looked through it. There might be 1 or 2 people who are on the verge of skimming through it and needing a refresher. But this meeting is recorded, so we will go over it really quickly just to make sure anyone else who goes back has an easy reference to go back to. So I will actually hand it over to Lori and let her go over the toolbox with you.
Thank you, Christy. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Lori.
Okay, great. All right, because of the structure of this program, the designs we're proposing are limited to the device toolbox and the guidebook. This means if it's not in the toolbox, it's not an option for this project. Some commonly suggested solutions that are not included in the program include things like stop signs, cul-de-sacing or closing the street off, police enforcement, as we mentioned before, new sidewalk installation, and then the removal of existing devices. And if you'd like any more information on these topics, there are resources in the guidebook and on the A2Gov website. On pages 9 through 12 of the traffic calming guidebook, devices are grouped into things you drive over and things you drive around. And a disclaimer about this portion of the presentation, some of the devices in the guidebook are not covered tonight, which is because they're not feasible for this project, either from an engineering perspective or they just don't meet the Ann Arbor Fire Department's requirements for their emergency access. So things that you drive over are devices that slow traffic by creating discomfort if traveled over at a speed exceeding 25 miles an hour. The device toolbox presents 4 devices that fall under this category, including speed humps, speed tables, raised crosswalks, and raised intersections. The next few slides will describe each of these devices except for raised crosswalks and raised intersections. These devices are currently under review by the engineering department. They also don't apply with this project since we don't have any established crosswalks. A typical speed hump diagram is shown on the left here, and an example from Wells Street is shown on the right. Speed humps are typically 12 feet long, 3 feet high, have a parabolic shape, and extend the full width of the street except for the gutter. And studies found benefits of speed hump treatments include speed reductions, traffic volume reductions, as well as crash reductions. Some other notes regarding speed humps are the height is designed for ease of bike usage and bicycle safety. If previously permitted, vehicles can park on speed humps and trash cans can be placed on speed humps if necessary. This is a speed table. You can see a fully constructed example on Glenwood Road near Washtenaw Avenue. Speed tables are raised devices that extend the full width of the street except for the gutter. They're typically 22 feet long with tapered edges, a flat 10-foot center platform, and are 3 inches high. Studies found benefits of speed table treatments may include traffic volume reductions and crash reductions. Some other notes regarding speed tables include the speed reduction is less than the speed hump. The platform width can be customized. The height is designed for ease of bike usage and bike safety. If previously permitted, vehicles can park on speed tables and trash cans can be placed on speed tables if necessary. If there are any questions about devices you drive over, please raise your hand or use the Q&A function. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions or hands. So moving on to the other group of devices in our toolbox, which are the things that you drive around. This type of device slows traffic by creating the perception of less room for error and a road that's visually or physically narrower. The device toolbox presents 7 devices that fall under this category: pedestrian gateways, median islands, pedestrian islands, residential traffic circles, mini roundabouts, curb extensions, and chicanes. The next few slides will describe each of these devices except for the devices marked in red. These devices have been omitted from this project due to the street width requirements set by the fire department, as well as conflict with existing traffic controls. Curb extensions can be used in several designs: curb bump outs, mid-block bump outs, and chokers. Shown on the right is a bump out at Granger Avenue and White Street. The curb extensions act as an extension of the curb.
Oh, sorry, I think we lost Lori. I'll go ahead and pick up. So curb extensions, they act as an extension of the curb line to physically and visually tighten the corridor by narrowing street width. 2 parallel curb bump outs can be used to create a single lane width passageway or choke point. You can alternate the curb bump outs that can be used to create a chicane effect. Curb extensions have a couple of considerations. They may require drainage consideration. They may require loss of on-street parking. They can also cause debris to collect around the device. And then they also have to maintain 20 feet for emergency response vehicles. If you're doing a 1 or 2 lane choker, this can result in speed reduction. It's shown to produce a minor reduction in traffic volume, and also 1 lane chokers, they rely on regulatory signing and driver courtesy as well. Devices applied at intersection and mid-block locations. So if you're not doing it at the intersection, or if you're doing it at the intersection or doing it mid-block, this can shorten pedestrian crossing distances. It can improve pedestrian visibility, as well as eliminate illegal parking if there was any, if there was no parking permitted on the street. And then this slide shows an example of those alternating curb bump outs that create that chicane effect. Like other curb extensions, chicanes can require drainage consideration, loss of on-street parking, cause debris to collect around the device, and they still must maintain 20 feet with clearance of the road for emergency response vehicles. There's one other device that's included in the guidebook that really doesn't fall in the category of driving over or driving around. This would be the neighborhood gateway treatment. This is just a physical landmark that indicates a change from a higher speed arterial road to a lower speed residential or commercial district. So it's just kind of like a sign that's like, hey, you're coming into the Bird neighborhood or you're coming into a residential neighborhood. Neighborhood gateway treatments, they can increase awareness for residential speeds. They also may require additional right-of-way. In addition to that, the neighborhood or any adjacent property owners, they would bear the landscaping, the installation and maintenance costs. If there are any questions about the devices you drive around or the gateway treatment, we'll do another pause here. You can raise your hand or use the Q&A function.
Hi, Christy. This is Cyrus.
Oh, hey, Cyrus.
And I think sounds like just a few maybe connection issues. I noticed I got a warning, and I think Lori might have hit an issue a bit ago. But the last bit you were explaining about the about that last device, it did cut out for a second for me. I'm not sure if that's the case for everyone else or not, but just wanted
to... the gateway treatment?
Yes.
Okay.
And I apologize. It may just be my connection. I just wanted to flag it in case.
Oh no, you're good. Thank you. No, I appreciate that. I'll go over if there are any questions about any of the devices, go ahead and still raise your hand or use the Q&A, but I'll just go over it again really quickly. So this is called a neighborhood gateway treatment. This is just like a sign, excuse me, a sign or a physical landmark that indicates a change from a higher speed road to a lower speed, like a residential or commercial district. Gateway treatments or neighborhood gateway treatments can increase awareness for those residential speeds, but they may also require additional right-of-way. And then in addition, the neighborhood or the adjacent property owner would bear the landscaping, the installation, and maintenance costs.
Thanks. I apologize for anyone else if that was repetitive.
No, thank you. Yeah, the last thing I want to do is read through the entire presentation and then, or like a whole slide and then find out that no one could hear. But I don't see anything in the Q&A. I don't see any hands raised, so I'll push forward. I'll probably repeat this several times, but feel free to use the Q&A freely if anything comes to mind. So there were examples of those devices in Ann Arbor next to all those device descriptions. If you'd like to see additional examples on how the devices are used, there is an interactive map on the traffic calming website that shows all of the past and current projects, tells you where they are. So if you even want to go visit them in person, you'll know where to find a roundabout or where to find a curb extension, things like that. So next we'll present the starter idea, which is just a draft plan that we've created based on engineering judgment, the data collection. We include the preliminary traffic study and the feedback from the initial questionnaire. There's going to be an opportunity to answer questions on each device and discuss any changes you may want to see, keeping in mind that this project is limited to the devices that we just reviewed, also subject to additional design, and as we've discussed before, limited to only the paved portion of Bird Road. So this is the starter idea. Again, this is just a draft created based on the information that we've gathered so far, and preliminary information, and then the stuff from steps 1 and 2. We're proposing four devices for Bird Road. They're all speed humps. They're spaced to work together and to create a traffic calming effect throughout the paved portion. So please note that the traffic calming guidebook states that the street must be paved to be considered for traffic calming. We've got about 2/3 of the road that we can work with between Newport and Huron River Drive. And I do see a question I'll answer really quick. There's a question about speed limit signs. Those unfortunately are not part of the traffic calming program. That's not something that we can implement. And Cyrus, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the city does not typically install new speed limit signs in residential areas.
Yes, that's correct. We can certainly take a look about if there is a lack of signage. What we have typically found in other locations is having some awareness of the speed limit sign is having awareness of the speed limit is obviously important. It's to signage alone, which is where the traffic calming program comes in, which is intended to create that, the slowing of traffic through a physical design change. It doesn't mean we can't install traffic speed limit sign if there isn't, if there isn't a sign on the block, for instance. But I believe there is. I'm just double checking that. As long as there's some signage, that's generally sufficient. What we're finding it can kind of
Sorry, Cyrus, you're coming in a little
is it breaking up a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? I think I'm good now. Sorry about
Yes, I can hear you,
Okay.
Lori.
Okay.
I can.
I'll hand off to Lori then, because
Okay.
I think she'll reiterate what I was saying. So
Yeah, I think what you were saying may be related to some of the past studies that have been done, and typically they were found to not have a traffic calming effect or reduce that 85th percentile speed. So they're not really considered effective speed control device, and not included as part of this project.
Thanks, Lori. Yeah, I already cleared it, I think, from the Q&A board, but they did state that there is a lack of signage. So, that's, while we can't propose installation of speed limit signs within this project, definitely it's something we can take back to the city at large to review and determine whether, the lack of signage itself is something that needs to be addressed.
I'll try one more time. If hopefully this will come through. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, I can for now, yeah.
Okay, just let me know if that's not the case. So everything Christy and Lori said is correct. That being said, now that I've pulled the map up, I do see that we don't have signs, which may be a result of the fact that we don't have a good place to actually install them. I'll certainly work with our team to figure out. As Christy said, it wouldn't be part of traffic calming per se, but you know, having one set of signs on this block would certainly be a reasonable reminder of the speed limit. But we need to make sure that we can actually install the sign somewhere, given that there's no sidewalk and there may be limited ability for that, but also just with the reminder that signage alone is typically not a solution. We don't rely on signage alone because we know, based on a number of studies on various types of behavior, not just speed limit, installing a sign by itself is really just part of informing drivers and other users of the street about certain pieces of information. We would expect that if traffic calming were installed as part of this program, that would have a much more noticeable effect on bringing speeds down.
Thanks, Cyrus. Yeah. So we'll definitely take that back for review outside of the program. There are a couple other questions that came up in the Q&A that we'll get to them on screen in the presentation, but I'll answer really quickly. So there's one from Nina asking if that the speed hump looks like one of the speed humps looks like it's right in our driveway. Is that correct? This is just a very general overview, like a very high level plan for you to look at. I've already been out to Bird Road just to make sure if we have the general spacing. So it's not going to be right in front of your driveway. We do have to make sure that there's clearance, but it would be in the general area in front of your address. So, and the other thing was added was also, what information do you have regarding sound issues and speed humps? Trucks barrel down this road at a high speed and wake me up at night. Would the humps make it worse? If you're speeding over the humps, I believe that would definitely create sound. That may end up having to be an issue of enforcement, which is something that the police department can address, which I have more information on that later in the presentation.
Yeah, one thing with the speed humps and trucks is that it's going to be hard for them to continue to speed over them. So trucks in general are just kind of noisy, that and I think this question came up in another one of our meetings too, and so far the city hasn't heard any complaints of it increasing the speed or the noise levels. That's correct, Cyrus?
Yes, that's right. We have not heard that. But you're right. And you and Christy are both correct to note that there could be a sound issue if vehicles were to continue going over them at higher speeds than designed. But we have not heard of that as an issue after project installations.
Thank you. And then one last comment came in before I go on, citing that the fire hydrant near 1274 is incorrect, that it should be within the property line of 1274, so we will adjust that. Like I said, it's a very high level drawing that you're looking at. That is important to note. Before I move on, just another reminder about speed humps. Speed humps, raised devices in general, or traffic calming devices in general, they're most effective when used in a series. So we wanted to use this as a starting point. A layout like this is nice because it shows you can have a calming effect through the entire residential portion of Bird Road. So the next few slides, there'll be close-ups of each of the devices. Again, just blowing up the image in smaller portions for you to look at. It is a very high level drawing. It's not going to have all the details as they would in the final engineering or construction plan, but just forewarning you, because they're all speed humps, they might, the next few slides might get a little repetitive. But this image here is just a little too far zoomed out to see some of the detail. So device number 1 will start at the west end over by Newport Road. Device number 1, it's a speed hump near 1463 Bird Road and 2466 Newport Road. Again, speed humps, they can result in speed reduction, traffic volume reduction, crash reduction. Some things to keep in mind with speed humps are that legal on-street parking is still permissible over a speed hump. These are designed, the city has a standard to design them to be safe for vehicles and bicyclists to travel over. If there's any questions that you have on speed humps, please, or on this device specifically, go ahead, use the Q&A or raise your hand. But if there's any questions specifically about device 1. I'm not seeing anything. So device 2, another speed hump. It's near 1439 Warrington Circle. We do have to maintain at least a 20-foot clearance from the fire hydrant, so we believe that it's possible to do that. Also to provide proper clearance from any driveways in the area. Spacing isn't exactly uniform between each of the devices, but they're all within an acceptable range for us to maintain that 25-mile-an-hour target. We don't want devices so far apart that people have a chance to speed up in between them, but we also don't want them so close together that you're going below 25 just to travel through here. And then there's a question, is this on Warrington or Bird? This is on Bird Road, but from the address list I was provided, this is technically a Warrington address, which, if I'm wrong, I'm going to have to go back at the address list. But the address that I was provided was that this property, even though it's facing Bird, was considered Warrington.
Yep, and that's right.
Okay.
Just for a clarification, it may, for residents of Bird Road, it may be helpful to think of it as which Bird Road addresses it's between. So it's between 1429 and 1375.
Yes, thank you. Okay, someone back that up too. This is the back of the Warrington Circle property. Thank you. If there are any questions about device 2. Oh, it is also a park access site there as well. Okay. If there are any questions about device number 2 before we move on, go ahead and either raise your hand or use the Q&A. Oh. There's a comment that the park access, no one uses it. Hmm. Oh, no one uses it and there's no trail there. Okay, so got a comment that it would be good to have the hump there. We'll move on to the third one. The third device number 3, this one is near 1335 and 1336 Bird Road. And then I'll go back really quick, back to the high level. So here's my little laser pointer. So this is the device that we're just looking at between 1335 and 1336 Bird Road. Just to show you the distances between the two, anything over 500, we start to kind of question whether it's too far apart to have a device. But there are, anything under 200 would start again, have us questioning the opposite is, are these devices too close together? So we're within the range between all the devices. They're not going to be exact, like even this is not going to be exactly 350 feet from device number one, but that's okay. Um, we've got driveways that we have to work around. We have um, fire hydrants that we also have to work around. So we have some room to move them. They don't have to be exact. And like I said, even with this drawing, it's not going, if this is what we end up installing, it will not exactly be 350. Okay, and then it was also backed up that device two, this area here is just park property. There's no trailhead, um, no trailhead there. And last, another question, why are there no devices around 1200 and 1180? So why are there no no devices over here? So this is where that very steep hill is, and this is where it transitions, the pavement conditions transition into dirt down at the bottom here. We can't put anything, we can't put anything on the unpaved portion. And with the hill there, um, we've, in previous projects, we've had a lot of pushback on placing any raised devices on the hill, especially with consideration to the winter months when we get ice and snow. So we try to avoid putting devices on the hill as well. But because we have a device here, um, we know that we can experience traffic calming even beyond the device. And I'll go back to device three. Again, this is 1335, 1336 speed hump. If there are any questions about this one before I move on to the next slide. I don't see any. So yeah, device four is this is near 1274 and 1277 with clearance. There will be clearance from driveways. There will be clearance from the fire hydrant. I will update that graphic to show that the hydrant is within the 1274 property line. Again, as I said, beyond that, over towards 1200 and 1180, we can't really put any devices there. With the transition to unpaved portion, with the hill there, with our limitations, because there aren't any sidewalk facilities for us to work with, we're kind of limited. If there's, the only other thing, especially with speed humps, because of the ice and snow, and especially with how steep that hill is, the concern would be if vehicles would have a hard time getting up or down that hill in those months. I understand that it was a very common bit of feedback with how steep that hill is and with how many people walk in that area, given that the park is right there. I don't want to say that it's entirely out of the scope of this project. The only other tool that we really have, or the only other device that we really have in our that applies would be the curb extension. But even that, if we can't maintain clearance for emergency vehicles, we cannot put anything there. I believe the road is like 27, 28. I believe it's under 30 feet that we have of width. Or maybe even more than that.
Yeah, it looks pretty narrow measuring it on Google Earth.
Mhm.
It's, I mean, in some areas, 23. There's
Mhm.
so many trees, it's hard to measure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was thinking about, this, even if there's nothing on the unpaved portion, it's gonna deter people.
Mhm.
And thinking about the truck comment too. The good thing about the way that these devices have been designed is with 4 speed bumps closely spaced like this, it's really gonna be difficult for trucks, so difficult that they're probably not gonna come down this street, if they know about the speed humps. And I think it'll definitely slow down the traffic, significantly. There's
So
more
the
comments.
Yeah, there's a comment of, do we have to contact the county to see what they can do on the dirt road? So the road, Bird Road itself is maintained by the city. It's a city road. So I've talked with Cyrus and other staff members in the engineering department. So they are aware of this of the safety concern. I'm not sure if there's a status on doing another study or what the next steps would be. But I do know that, we can collect the information, the feedback from this program to kind of bolster any action moving forward. Um, so I'll just leave it at that. But there's another comment checking on the ownership of the property south of Hump 2. It may be owned by Newport West, which at one time was going to put a road connecting Newport West to Bird. Okay, thank you. That is good information to have. Um, yeah, the map that we got from the city to create the drawing here that show the property lines in yellow, it did show that all of that land was park property. So that will be good for us to double check to see if there's anyone else to potentially collaborate with on our design. So I hope that answered or gave explanation on why we don't have additional any additional devices um, beyond where we're seeing device number 4. Okay, that is all part. Okay, so it seems like we're going back and forth a little bit, but I appreciate the input from everyone. If there's any other questions about these devices, why we've chosen them, why if we need more clarification on why we're limited to these raised devices, or why we're spacing them like this, or if we'd like to see anything else, I'll just kind of pause here for a minute, just because the next section is going to be more polling on each of the devices. So I want to try and get any other feedback or questions addressed before moving on to the polling. You don't see anything. Oh, I'll remind everyone that the invitations for this meeting were sent out to the residents. But the meeting information was also posted to our public or to our project website, which is public. So this is a public meeting that that anyone can attend. We just try to direct our invitations to residents that have the official voting power on the project. But these meetings themselves and this polling, this is public. So I didn't see any other questions or comment about the devices themselves. So the next few slides, they'll just be poll questions for each device. And before I move on to that, I just want to point out also, there are some neighbors that couldn't make the meeting today, but they've reached out to us ahead of time. They've shared input that I just want to share with everyone before we do the polling. So I had someone who was who's a resident who reached out, and in common with a lot of the other discussion that we've had, that the real issue is with speed is at the park area with the hill, with the narrowness of the road. They've cited it's really dangerous for walkers and for bikers when cars are driving really fast. They also recounted that they had a near miss. They were driven off the road by a speeding car when they were riding their bike. They also stated that given that the city is only looking at the paved portion of the road, they didn't see how that addresses the real issue. They wanted to put up speed limit signs, but given that we can't do that within the limits of this project, they weren't sure what benefit there was to this exercise. The road is pretty narrow already. They stated that they believe the speed bumps are too noisy. Really, the only thing that they supported was putting up a speed limit sign on the paved portion and on the dirt road portion. So I wanted to make sure that I shared that with everyone. If there's any feedback, I see I have a hand raised from Margot. Go ahead and unmute if you.
I apologize. I think this was a letter that you were given by one of our Bird Road residents that was not able to attend.
Yes.
So I appreciate you including him. That's all.
Oh, thank you. Yes, they wanted to share their input ahead of the meeting. They let me know that they couldn't attend. But yeah, I know some of it we've discussed already, but I just wanted everyone to have a chance to hear their feedback, somewhat paraphrased. But yes, they also believe that the real issue is over in the park area, over at that hill. Like we said before, speed limits aren't possible within this program, but given that there is no signing, there's a lack of signing on Bird Road. Cyrus will be able to take that information back to the engineering department to see if there's see if they can determine if there's any benefit to installing signage. But I will say, and as Cyrus has said, the traffic calming devices themselves will have a physical barrier that can reduce traffic as well. And then the thing about speed humps and the noise, especially with those trucks that it was shared with having a series of these and having them close together, it may even deter trucks from coming down here once they realize it's the traffic calming devices have been implemented. And then it sounds like we need to also consider Huron River Drive as well, Cyrus, when we're looking at signage from one of the comments that came in.
Yep, we'll take a look at the ability to install signage on any portion of the road, the paved or unpaved portion. And I think that comment was getting at maybe the a speed limit sign in the unpaved portion once
Yes,
for
yeah.
traffic that turns off of Huron River Drive. So
Yes.
if it's possible to install a sign there, we will definitely look into that.
And then this other comment before I move forward. I agree that that area is a concern, but the whole road has speeders with little visibility of wildlife, no sidewalks, etc. So I think we need more than just a speed sign. So yes, when I made the disclaimer about not being able to address the unpaved portion, it is only like a third, maybe less than a third of the entire stretch of Bird Road. So we still have a really large portion of Bird Road that's paved that's worth implementing, that we believe is worth implementing devices that would have an effect extending beyond, hopefully extending beyond just the paved portion. But in terms of what we can physically put down, we are a little limited. So I didn't see any, gosh, I really dislike when it does this. I didn't see any other questions or comments. So I'll move on to the polling. If any other questions come up, please just keep doing what you're doing with the Q&A and hand raising. But I'm going to launch the poll for device 1. It's asking, do you support device 1? That would be the speed hump near 1463 Bird Road. Go ahead and put your votes in, and then Cyrus, I don't know if you saw it, but there was a comment just saying thank you for talking about adding the speed signs at each end of the road, if not just for residents, but for all people who come to the park. There is that.
Thanks.
There was another question, why are speed humps preferred to speed tables? Speed tables, with the studies that we have, there are slight differences in the percentages of reductions that have been from the studies that are out there. But in general, you're likely to see or experience more of a stopping effect with the speed hump than the speed table. The speed hump has a different feel to it. Speed tables, we start to look at those when we know that there's an established bus route or a lot of bus traffic. The public schools and the transit authority are some of the stakeholders that we share this plan with ahead of public meetings. So when we've got a bus route or we're right next to a school, we like to share that with them. And I believe we haven't had to do it yet, but I know that the preference at that point would be a speed table rather than a hump. So I didn't get a vote from everyone, so I'll hang out just for another moment. And let everyone make sure they get their vote in for device 1. I mean, these polls are, don't see the poll. Let me see if I can. It is launched. I do have votes from others. I don't know if you're on a computer, maybe the window is popped up out of view for you. I see there's a hand raised from Luca. You can go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was me saying that I couldn't see the poll. It's
Oh,
fixed.
yeah,
Clicked,
Luca, you're okay. There was someone else who has also said that they can't see the poll. So I'm hoping there's a comment from someone else saying that it could be off of your screen.
Yeah, it's still showing up on my screen, Christy. I'm trying to see how you might be able to bring it back.
If I end the poll, it's going to end for everyone.
Yeah,
And if I relaunch it, then everyone has to revote. So if you don't see the poll and you want to answer, you can use the Q&A. The question is asking, do you support device number 1, the speed hump here at near 1463?
I think it maybe too, if you minimize the Zoom, and if you have any other applications open and try to minimize and see if it's behind something. That might help too.
Luca, did you have another?
No, I wasn't.
Oh,
Wasn't trying.
sorry. Okay. Okay, I got that person's response in with the Q&A. Thank you. Hopefully with the next one you can see it. So including the typed in question, we do have full support for device 1. And I know this polling can be kind of limiting. So if there's any other context that you want to add, feel free to, speak up and share it or use the Q&A or because I know a yes no isn't always the best way to share your information or to share your opinion. But I'll go ahead. Hopefully everyone can see this. I'm launching the next poll question for device number 2, which we've got on the screen here. So this one is between 1429 and 1375 Bird Road. Okay, it looks like we have everyone answering on the polling page, so we're all in support of that. And then next one is for device number 3. That poll will launch right now. And if there's any feedback that you want to share anonymously, just a reminder, you can use the Q&A and check the anonymous box. If you prefer that. If there's any other feedback or any other yes but that you need to add. So this one, we do have at least one vote for not supporting this. And if there's like a specific reason why, or if there's anything that we could change that would gain support, that would be really helpful to learn. Like I said, even after this meeting, if there's any other feedback that you want to provide, you can send it to me. But we'll do the polling question for the last one, the last device. So this is device 4, and I'm launching the poll question now. This is the speed hump that is near 1274 and 1277. There is a comment that, so there was a comment that popped up with the concern that this would cause the city to deny sidewalks and other help near the dirt road or the dirt portion. I would say, perhaps if Cyrus, if you have additional context, I would say that these are two separate issues. Speeding and lack of sidewalks or lack of pedestrian facilities are two separate issues. And given that the safety concern has predates the traffic calming program, it would not be my first thought that the devices implemented here would deter any future help or future improvements to Bird Road.
Yeah, that's correct in a nutshell. The existence of traffic calming devices, I shouldn't have any impact on future potential sidewalks. The bigger issue, as I understand it right now, is that is the unpaved portion. I don't know. Yeah, it's a separate question and process. But I think the short version is that whether it involves potential paving of the unpaved portion or sidewalks, both of which there are not plans to do. But if there were future plans to do either, the traffic calming devices would not be an inherent roadblock. There may be it may be a chance to revisit the traffic calming devices if they're installed and determine if there's any changes that need to occur. But yeah, it's not a reason to I would not vote against the traffic calming device because of the sidewalk question. They are pretty separate issues.
Thanks, Cyrus. And then there's a couple more comments that came in. One is just noting that they believe the street is not wide enough to install sidewalks, and they're stating they personally don't want trees cut down and are focusing on calming traffic. So I appreciate the respectful viewpoint. And then there's another comment that there is a space at the bottom of the blind hill that we believe is still in the city. Could you put a hump there? So at the bottom of the hill, where the pavement starts to get really not great, at the bottom of the hill, where it transitions into dirt, I don't know if it would be a pavement condition issue. I'm not
Is
sure.
that where it meets the dirt?
Yeah, at the bottom of the hill where there's a parking area for the nature area, parking for the nature area.
Look at the Google Earth. I think that's within close proximity of your other device, number 4.
And also we've got another driveway that's right at the bottom of the hill. Don't want to discourage placement there if it makes sense or if it's feasible, but with previous discussions that I had with the engineering department, it was not a feasible option to put anything at the bottom of the hill. Let me save that as an issue to follow up with and then give you a firm answer in the discussion summary. Because I always like to double check, sometimes triple check on things. And if I recall correctly in previous conversation that I had with the department, they preferred that we just avoid placing any devices near the hill because of the transition, because the pavement is so poor. But I would like to go back and check again. I'll explain how that will be incorporated if it is a possibility in the next slides. So yes, putting a pin in adding a hump at the bottom of the hill. And it looks like we've got some additional comments backing that up, agreeing that this is an area that definitely needs calming. The pavement does extend beyond 1180, but it is in very poor condition. And then there's some comments in agreement with focusing on traffic calming, or focusing or reiterating the comment with agreeing on with the note written by the neighbor who couldn't attend, that the issue is pedestrian safety, visibility, and vulnerability there. So I still, okay, I still only have, I don't have everyone answered for device number 4 poll. If you don't want to, if you don't see it, you can just drop your, if you don't see it still, you can drop your response in the Q&A. I'll give you another moment or so. And if you're commenting anonymously and you would like to turn that off, I believe you'll have to uncheck the box because it's still coming up anonymous. Question, if this plan for speed humps is approved, when would installation actually begin? How long does it take to install a speed bump? So right now I think we're planning for budget in the season 2024-2025 at this point. Once we get through this process, I don't know if that's still the case, if it would still be part of that budget. So, okay. I've got a couple people who have said they don't know if their vote went through, but they are in support of device 4. So just go ahead and end it. So it looks like we're in support of device 4. We are potentially in support of a 5th device, another speed hump at the bottom of the hill. But as I said, that's something I'll have to confirm whether or not that's a possibility for us, and then follow up with everyone. So that's it on the polling. The next step, over the next couple weeks, we'll post today's presentation and the recording to the project website. I'll also post a summary of the polling results, and we'll use the feedback to create the preliminary plan. Along with that summary will be a discussion section where I will have a definitive answer on whether or not we can add a 5th device, or whether or not we can add a device on the other side of that hill over by the parking area. It sounds like that would be the preferred location, over by the parking for the nature area. But after that, the next step will be meeting number 2. Meeting number 2 consists of 2 parts. There's a self-guided tour and a Zoom meeting, another Zoom meeting. That meeting is scheduled for November 16th. I also want to apologize because the letter that I sent out to everyone states that the meeting is on a Monday, November 16th. The 16th is a Thursday, so the calendar date was correct. I just typed out the wrong day of the week. The save the date card that was also enclosed in there and posted, and that card is also posted to the website. that has just the date, November 16th, so that is correct. It's just there was an error in the letter that I wrote out in the mailer. So wanted to point that out. November 16th is a Thursday. That is the day of our second meeting. So for the self-guided tour, you're going to receive a mailing packet at least 2 weeks ahead of the meeting. The packet's going to contain device images and descriptions. So it'll basically have the device descriptions that we reviewed earlier tonight. It'll have the images and descriptions, which you can use to complete a self-guided tour prior to our Zoom meeting. The device locations, they'll be marked in spray paint out on the pavement on Bird Road. They'll have a little sign that displays the device image and the description as well, on a little temporary sign near each of the locations. If you can't make it out there to walk it, you can also use Google Street View to conduct the self-guided tour. And then, as I said, the Zoom portion is scheduled for Thursday, November 16th, also at 6 p.m. During the meeting, we'll present the preliminary plan, we'll answer questions, we'll poll just like we did with the devices in the starter idea, we'll poll for each of the devices in the preliminary. And then the last step of the traffic calming process is final polling. So after meeting 2, the plan gets finalized, we take into consideration any additional feedback, and then we send the final plan out to all the residents in the project area. Each resident, you're going to get another mailing package. In the package, you're going to have the final plan, a cover letter, and the final poll. So just like the initial questionnaire, you'll be able to submit your poll either by mail, fill it out and mail it back into me, or you can complete it online. But to continue moving forward in the traffic calming process, more than 50% of the response support, sorry, let me rephrase that. More than 50% of the people who participate in the final poll have to support the final plan. So if there are 4 people, there are only 4 people who participate in the final poll and it's a 50-50, the plan does not go through. It has to be more than 50%. And it has to be, and the final poll question is asking, do you support the plan as a whole? It's not by device like we've been doing tonight. It'll be asking you if you support the plan as a whole in its entirety. And that is per household. So just like with the initial questionnaire, it was only one poll, one questionnaire per household. So it's not per individual in your home, it's per household. And then there are also rules in the guidebook that if more than one person per household answers, then neither of those responses are recorded. So I just want to make sure that everyone's clear on that, on what the requirement is for the final poll. If that criterion is met, what our team will do is request support from the Transportation Commission and then submit the plan for City Council's approval. If the project receives approval from City Council, then a construction date will be determined. Then the plan will be subject to like final designing, construction estimate, budget, all that good stuff. But within the City Council meeting, within the resolution, there will be a predicted budget year or construction year at that point. So these are the next steps, just in an easier format to look at, hopefully. So today's presentation recording, it's going to be posted to the project website in the next week or 2. Also have a summary of the polling and a response to what we can do about that 5th device, or whether or not we can have a 5th device, or whether or not we can do anything around that hill area will also be in that summary. We'll use the feedback to create our preliminary plan. Our meeting to discuss that plan is scheduled for November 16th. You'll have a self-guided tour set up at least 2 weeks ahead of the meeting. And then after meeting number 2, the plan will be finalized and you'll start to see your final mailing package. That'll go out December 12th. So you'll start seeing those in the mail shortly after. You'll have the option to complete the poll by mail or online. The deadline to either electronically complete it or postmark it will be December 29th. So I understand we're starting to work around holidays, but for the sake of not delaying this process any further, we are trying to move forward through them. So I understand it may be difficult for people, but if there's any concern, please let me know as soon as you can, and we'll try to make sure that we get responses from everyone who wants to participate. As I said, the requirement to move forward is of those who participate in polling, there needs to be more than 50% approval of the final plan. If the requirement is met, we tentatively will go to Transportation Commission, hopefully in February, and then hopefully catch the February City Council meeting. That's subject to their schedule and changing things like that. That right now, as of now, is what we're aiming for. And then this is my contact information. This is the project website. If there are any additional comments or questions or concerns, anything that you think of after today, please call or send me an email. If you'd like email notifications about things that are being mailed out, you can send your email in the Q&A, or you can send me an email just to add you to the list. Please, please, please take note of Wade Trim's name and logo that's on the screen there. I send mailing package out of our office, so just so that anything that's returned comes back to me directly, that rather than me trying to hunt it down from the city's office. I understand that the city's logo has greater recognition. If I had the capacity to get envelopes with both the city and Wade Trim's logos on them, I would. But at this point, I haven't been able to make it happen. So I just need your help to be on the lookout for our company logo when you're checking your mail. They'll have a big sticker on them that says traffic calming information. So please, please don't throw out those letters if you want to be part of this process. I'm relaunching that demographic survey. If you didn't get a chance to take it before the meeting, you can do so now before you leave. It's just a standard poll that the city uses just to try and improve public engagement efforts. We're just close to 7:30, so I really want to get everyone out of here on time. But if there are any questions, you can either reach out to me or I'll stay on for a few more minutes. There's a comment here. Do we know who was on the Zoom so we can communicate with those who were not on the call so we can encourage them to get on the next one? The the virtual sign-in sheet will be on the summary. So it'll have a list of all the names that people use to sign into the call. Another comment saying, also thinking maybe not cut down hardwood trees, but just the brush and weeds. That can be a really great way to improve sight distance. There is a lot of growth there. Maintaining the brush and overgrowth, not of the trees, but of the overgrowth, that is definitely something that can help with sight distance when if we're trying to improve vehicles' ability to see pedestrians or people in the road. And another comment, thank you for listening and taking good action. I hope everyone will participate too. I appreciate everyone's feedback. I know it's not always easy to carve out time for additional things outside of work, so I really appreciate everyone's patience and time. And I hope you have a great night. Like I said, we're right at 7:30, but if there's anything else, please reach out to me. My contact information is there. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and wrap it up, and I hope everyone has a great night. Thank you.